Yeah, so thank you, Catherine, for that wonderful and heartwarming introduction. And I'd also like to extend heartfelt thanks to Jeremy Brown, chair of the history department, as well as to colleagues, students, and of course the Cormack selection committee for this extraordinary vote of confidence. I've always been in huge admiration of colleagues who've displayed that wooden apple on their desks, and it's both an honor and deeply humbling to join them. And as you said, Catherine, it also has been an opportunity to reflect, for me to reflect on the evolution of my teaching practice since I joined SFU some 14 years ago. I had to actually calculate that. Back then, I was quite eager to enter the classroom, but still very wet behind the ears in terms of what I was actually doing in there. At that time at SFU, we were busy thinking of the world. Then we began engaging the world, and now we're just engaged. Now, who among us hasn't had a bit of an eye roll at such marketing taglines? But I think that if we have, in this case, it's in part because of the rather self-evident ways in which these words speak to what we try to do each time we present ourselves to our students. The sudden switch to remote teaching that ended up lasting a year and a half made that painfully obvious. Suddenly, we were confronted with what it means to engage through blank screens and wonky internet connections. And while we all did our best and some truly unique inventions were born of this moment of necessity, I know I was not alone in feeling a renewed energy when we returned to our physical classrooms. And as my title for today, Teaching in Situ, indicates, the driving force in my work, both research and teaching, as Catherine alluded to, revolves around the notion of place. To me, engagement is about connecting physically, socially, culturally to the places we inhabit and learn about, something I found challenging to do in the dematerialized environment of virtual discussion platforms. But whether it's remotely or in person, students in my courses are invited to relate class material to issues in the broader public realm, producing assignments that develop their skills in historical research and writing, while learning to share their findings with various types of academic and community audiences. My goal is thus to create a sense of place within the classroom by fostering an environment of dialogue and collaboration, as well as beyond the classroom, whether by meeting outside experts, visiting museums and galleries, walking through the streets of the city, or structuring coursework around partnerships with outside organizations. I found especially rewarding the opportunities to collaborate with groups like City Studio and the Vancouver Historical Society to get students working on projects premised on the idea that promoting historical knowledge about diverse communities helps to create a more inclusive city, one that fosters residents' engagement with placemaking in urban public space. In these courses, students develop traditional academic research and writing skills, but also learn to mobilize the knowledge they develop in ways that are communicable to broader audiences. Examples range from a walking tour on the history of political activism in downtown Vancouver that was integrated into the Museum of Vancouver's community programming, to a series of plaques on the history of the False Creek area printed by the City of Vancouver and mobilized in public consultation activities by the city, to a TikTok video on Indigenous dispossession in Stanley Park that went rather viral, garnering over 37,000 views. We were all very proud of that in the class. As a historian, I'm particularly interested in connecting our course material to ongoing debates around themes like decolonization, reconciliation, political tensions, social inequalities, and aspirations. I invite my students to unpack the layers of history that are essential for understanding and therefore addressing the issues that preoccupy them in the here and now. But it's one thing to talk about past injustices in the comfort of a classroom, and another to confront them firsthand. Less talking, more walking became my own tagline last summer as I worked to develop a new post-pandemic version of my History of Vancouver seminar that now features almost weekly walkabouts to places of interest accessible from the Harbour Centre campus. If our readings teach us, for example, about the eviction of Indigenous families to create Stanley Park, it takes on another level of meaning to stand with the students on the site where these homes were burned to the ground, gazing at the skyline of glass towers, smelling the haze of forest fire smoke in the air, our conversations interrupted by the roar of seaplanes overhead, all reminders of the historically contingent and fragile nature of life in this region. And finally, I'd like to briefly touch on a unique and essential element of my teaching role at SFU, one that Catherine mentioned, namely the courses I offer each year in the French cohort program. That most students in the program are working in their second, often their third or even fourth language, makes it particularly rewarding to watch them tackle ideas and concepts with growing confidence over the course of their years in the program, including an overseas exchange. Here, my fellow instructors and I work to create a sense of place defined by the challenges and opportunities of a minority language setting through our courses, community connections, and the resources we've developed, including a purpose-built textbook. We strive to integrate students into a francophonie that extends beyond their cohort experience and connects to a vibrant community in BC and beyond. A community that has its own stories of colonialism and dispossession, but also of resilience and aspiration, one that cannot be understood without attending to the global flows of people that have and more than ever continue to shape it. So I can think of no better setting really in which to think about or engage the world. Thanks very much.